All right, folks, welcome back. We are here on season 4, episode 4 of the show Reacher, Amazon Prime's Reacher. This is the review. This is my review of this episode. And the episode was called Karambits and Pieces. And we finally they finally expose the bigger game of the plot of this season, right? And spoiler alert, of course, people. Now, I won't be showing any clips. You may get me. I may show one picture, maybe. But besides that, there will be no photos or videos. So you're gonna have to go watch the series or find someone else who's doing videos because I think the show is so good that you need to watch it. I shouldn't be. You don't need clips. Go watch the show. Go watch it. Okay, that's what I'm gonna say. Now, anyway, this is my thoughts. This is my review. So, Reacher season 4 reaches its halfway point with an episode that finally starts answering some of the questions surrounding Anna Merrick. And you remember Aaron Merrick if you watched the last one or if you've been watching the series. She's the lady who blew her brains out on the subway after discovering something. And she worked for the government, blah, blah, blah. And we get also answers to the missing jump drive and Congressman John Sampson, who I don't trust. And you shouldn't either. But now, Karambits and Pieces also creates a much bigger problem for Jack Reacher. So that we see Reacher now going to get in trouble. And by the end of episode 4, the investigation has completely changed. We know more about why Anna was desperate. We finally learn what happened to her son Ben, which is tragic, of course. And Layla and Amisha reveal that Reacher may have seriously underestimated them. So I like this episode, gives you a lot. And it's done greatly. So let's start off with and another thing, after spending most of the season chasing other people, Reacher ends up in this episode, by the end of the episode, looking like a criminal. So let's start off with the first part here. Sampson finally starts talking, right? The episode begins in the aftermath of Nolan Cahill's death, which was his chief of staff. Now, you remember at the end of the last episode, if you watched it, Cahill jumped off the roof. And Congressman Sampson is clearly shaken. And Reacher uses this opportunity to push him for answers about the military past. Now, they have a conversation at the bar. So this is the only picture I'm going to show in this whole review, just so you know, because I want to paint the scene here of this scene. Because I think this scene here, to kick off the episode, was really a vulnerable moment for Sampson, of course, and Reacher getting to his investigative mode. It's like almost like not an interrogation, but kind of like a questionnaire. So that's the scene right there. If you can see it on the screen, that's the photo of those two at the bar. Reacher gives them, they get 2 drinks, 2 scotches, and Sampson spills the beans, as they say. So, let me go back to that. So Sampson's spilling the beans, right? That's what's going on there. And the conversation at the bar is one of my favorite parts of the episode because there isn't any action required. It's basically 2 men sitting across from each other trying to figure out how much the other one knows. Now, Sampson eventually opens up about the 1998 mission in Indonesia. His unit was there as part of an American operation that included training Indonesian special forces. One of the men they trained was General Putra, who later became responsible for horrific acts after the Americans returned home. Now, suddenly, Sampson's nervousness makes more sense now, right? Because remember, if you watched in the earlier episodes, he was always nervous, didn't know what was going on. He was kind of like, oh my God, this information is going to get out. This isn't simply about protecting a political career from some embarrassing story, right? Initially, in the first episode or 2, it seemed like this was about him trying to cover up a potential pregnancy. But we find out later that the woman lied about the whole thing. Wasn't nothing about that. So there's history here that powerful people don't want to expose. We all can relate to that in the real world here in America, right? Government will do anything to hide its secrets. Now, Reacher still doesn't trust Sampson completely, and neither do I, and neither should you if you've been watching. Sampson wants the jump drive returned to the government. That's what he said. He was like, I just want it back, return the property to the military. Reacher basically tells him he'll decide for himself after he finds out what's actually on it. So that's how Reacher said. Reacher looks him dead in the eye. He goes, I'll decide what to do with it after I see it. Right? So Reacher's not fully on board with returning it yet. So that's exactly the Reacher response you would expect, right? Of course. So moving on, to the next scene, which you're gonna right. So Tamara figures out what Anna did. So while Reacher's dealing with Samson, Tamara, Jacob, and Russell, you know, are following up on another part of the investigation. This section initially feels separate from the Reacher storyline, but it does provide one of the episode's biggest answers because Tamara breaks into not I want to say she broke in. She does I mean, I guess you could say she kind of did break in, but it was more like a unauthorized access to a facility where Anna worked. So Tamara infiltrates the government records facility where Anna worked, of course, and then the sequence is tense because Tamara also has to get inside using another employee's credentials and then access Anna's workstation before anyone realizes he doesn't belong there. She eventually discovers something important. Now, this is a key part here in this scene. Anna accessed a file, but instead of allowing that information to remain on the government system, she appeared to have copied it and deleted the original. So she copied it on the jump drive, which is our assumption here, and deleted the original so it couldn't be recovered by no one else. Crazy stuff. Now, this means the missing jump drive may contain the only remaining copy. That's why everyone's going crazy. People are killed for it, pretty much. Now the obsession with finding this drive makes sense, right? Everyone is chasing the backup, or at least the only copy they think, but they don't know that. So that all goes to shit because she finds that out, but then Tamara's chased out the building, and then this whole rescue mission there. Now, what I want to say about this scene, about the other two guys in the scene, obviously Jacob is the cop, the New Jersey cop who Anna is his sister, and I'll tell you in a few minutes about what happened to Ben. And Russell is the journalist, right? Now, I thought they did a good job in this episode because even though in the first couple episodes they were kind of boring, we saw too much of them. They had too much action. This episode they were perfect, right? I like to call it the more is less. They did well. All three of them were good, even though they didn't do a lot. More is less because this is Reacher. We want Reacher. We want action. We like the plots. We like the storyline, but we need to see Reacher, and we get that here. We get more Reacher here than the first three episodes combined, in my opinion. Now, the big fight scene that everyone is going to be excited about is the warehouse fight. Classic Reacher, of course. We get the kind of sequence that people watch Reacher for. The CIA catches up with him near the docks. Bad idea for the CIA. They thought they could take Reacher in. Reacher leads them into the warehouse and starts picking them apart one by one. I mean, classic Reacher. I mean, pow, pow, boom, pow, pow, e. Great stuff. The fight moves through the different parts of the building, including a cold storage unit. And I like how the sequence was shot. We get wider views of the action instead of this, constantly cutting every second. It was really good. Reacher is still ridiculously difficult to beat, of course, but the fight has enough physicality that it doesn't feel completely effortless. And this season has been giving Alan Richardson, Reacher, plenty of opportunities to remind everyone that Reacher's investigative ability isn't his only weapon. Sometimes the investigation really does come down to find the bad guy, hit the bad guy, continue investigation, right? And I'm okay with that, to be honest. I am okay with that. Now, after Reacher kicks everyone's ass in the warehouse, of course, there's another part of the story where they start to put pieces together, the whole team. So we call this the traffic jam solves part of Anna's mystery. Because everyone wanted to figure out why did Anna ditch her car to go to the subway, right? So one of the better pieces of the detective work comes from someone incredibly ordinary, right? Like traffic. Like, oh shit. When Reacher learns the others are stuck in heavy traffic, he realizes something about Anna's movements on the night she died. Because she needed to get somewhere quick. That leads the group to reconsider Anna's entire timeline. Now, the episode crucially suggests that Ben had already been taken and that Anna was operating under extreme pressure when Reacher encountered her, which makes sense at that point. The opening scene, if you remember the opening scene where Reacher approaches Anna on the train, he thought she had a bomb, but it was a gun. Anna saw a man identify himself as law enforcement at the worst possible moment, and we'll get to why that's important later. Reacher later admits to Jacob, Anna's brother, who's the cop that's hanging out with these guys, that he told Anna he was a cop because in the scene, Jacob wonders why would Anna go through all that and then blow her brains out. So then that's when the camera focuses on Reacher, and Reacher says, I told her I was a cop. And that almost put Anna in a corner like, holy shit, I'm not going to be taken in when I have this information or I know something. Or she maybe thought the government was going to get her, so she decided to end it. Right? So instead of his intervention, help push an already desperate woman over the edge. And Reacher acknowledges this in the episode, in the scene, that he kind of almost takes responsibility that while she's dead. And because at the time he didn't understand what was happening. But Ben takes it surprisingly, not Ben, excuse me, Jacob. He's looking at Reacher like he wants to kick his ass. At least that's how I interpret it. It's probably not that way. I might be misreading him. But Jacob is kind of calm, right? He's not as animated as he was in the first 3 episodes. But you could feel his emotion on the screen. You could look at him like this man is torn up, finding out that what Reacher said to him. Now, and then it gets even worse because during that time they're all hanging out. Tamara, Reacher, Jacob, and Russell. Tamara gets a phone call. Tamara's the black woman, the detective, notifying her that Ben has been found dead. And Ben gets that news right there on the spot after what Reacher just said, and it's like, oh my God, Ben's just getting hit after hit of like disappointment here. So, I mean, not Ben, Jacob, excuse me. Ben is Ben is the son, his nephew. So Jacob's finding out that Ben has been dead. And they have to go to the morgue. So they all go to the morgue. Reacher goes somewhere else. So the morgue sequence is one of the episode's darker moments because the mystery suddenly becomes much more personal. And Anna's gone. Ben is gone. Her son has been gone. Jacob has effectively lost both his sister and his nephew because of whatever is connected to this jump drive. And the medical examination also provides an important clue. Now, this is where the title of the show comes in at, folks. Ben's wounds are consistent with the same type of curved blade connected to another murder in the investigation. Right? A karambit. The karambit was used to dice up Ben, just like the other person that was killed earlier. And that weapon has a connection to the Indonesia martial arts. At that point, the episode title finally clicks, right? So now, Karambits and Pieces. But the show isn't finished with the karambit. At least the episode, at least. Layla has been hiding something. Now, we know Layla is a liar. She's already lied to Reacher. Why Reacher continues to fall for her, I don't know. I mean, she is hot, I get that, but come on, Reacher. Now, this is where episode 4 gets much more interesting because Reacher has been getting closer to Layla throughout the season, right? He has protected her all the time, warns her when danger's coming. He's clearly attracted to her. They got it on. And while he knows she hasn't always told him everything, he still treats her largely as someone caught in the middle of a dangerous situation. That assumption takes a massive hit in this episode. Reacher visits Layla after the group develops a theory that Anna may have mailed the jump drive to her. There's nothing waiting for Layla at the hotel. They check, right? They go there, they ask in the hotel front desk about it. Then more men arrive. So the hotel they had to go back to where she ran from, they had men waiting for them. I guess they staked the place out. Reacher recognizes the danger and gets Layla into the subway train while he stays behind. What follows is probably the episode's best action sequence. I mean, he ends up fighting these guys. The subway fight is brutal, folks. You thought the warehouse was something? I think the subway one was probably better because of all the action. Reacher takes down 2 people in the subway. Reacher gets into another fight underground, and this one is nastier than the warehouse sequence. There's a gun involved. There's a moving train. There's an electrified rail. And there's Reacher being Reacher. One attacker ends up losing badly, after Reacher uses the environment against him, and then Reacher has another problem. The police arrive. Instead of sticking around to explain why there are bodies everywhere, Reacher takes off through the subway system. At one point, he has to avoid an incoming train with almost no room to spare. It almost reminded me of that, not directly like that, but if you remember Die Hard, where Bruce Willis was on the outside of the train surfing, but Reacher's not surfing; he's stationary against the wall. But the train is so close it can almost take his head off. It briefly reminded me of that scene, Die Hard, when Bruce Willis, a little bit, not as much. Obviously, it's completely different scenarios, but you get what I'm saying. Now, um, so after all that, Reacher gets out of there, whatever. Back to the Karambit. The Karambit, definitely the final stretch here is where the Karambit and Pieces earns its title. Reacher learns that more armed men are headed towards Layla and Amisha. He races towards their hotel or motel. At the same time, the morgue investigation established the importance of the Karambit. Then the episode cuts back to the women. The men enter expecting two vulnerable targets, right? Now, this is the craziest part of the episode that kind of threw me for a loop. Caught me off guard. I'm not even going to lie. I was like, oh. But those women are not vulnerable after all. Those women are badasses. Instead, Layla and Misha pull out karambits. They have karambits of their own. And that is a moment the entire episode changes. It's like a boom, holy shit moment we get. These women aren't helpless. They aren't simply running from the people chasing the jump drive. And they clearly possess skills they haven't told Reacher about. Holy shit. The show doesn't immediately explain exactly who they are or what their full agenda is. We still haven't even gotten that yet. We do know that they lied about who they were initially. And I like that. I think that part needs to be, we'll probably find that out in the second half of the season. You can't give us everything at once. It's still a mystery, those two women. Now, even more of a mystery after they pull out karambits and start slicing, dicing 4 or 5 dudes in the room. I like that question hanging over the second half of the season. Now, of course, Reacher finally makes it, but has Reacher walked into a trap? Right? That's how it lays out. Now, obviously, if you watch the sequence, how it played out, you will have your answer, which is pretty clear. But by the time Reacher reaches the motel room, the fight is over between the two ladies, and they're long gone. The men are dead. Reacher walks through the aftermath, trying to understand what the fuck happened. He's like, holy shit, what happened here? And the police arrive just as Reacher's in there checking to see if the guys are dead. And they see Reacher in there, a giant man standing in the middle of a bunch of bodies. Reacher already has blood on him from the scene from earlier, from the fights that he was in. Nobody else is around. This looks really bad for Reacher, as Reacher is, of course, taken into custody, and that's how the episode ends. Now, he's the guy that police are going to want answers from, as typically Reacher is investigating everyone else. Now, the question we would put out there, and I already have my opinion on this, but I want the audience maybe to answer. Do you think Layla played Reacher? The question that is going to be interesting going into episode 5. Reacher normally reads people incredibly well. Is suspicious by nature, right? He's always suspicious. Yet Layla has repeatedly kept information from him. Now we discover she can apparently handle herself with a karambit while standing beside Amisha, who could also do the same. Now remember, Amisha barely speaks. She's like this little quiet, scared little lady. But this lady can handle herself just like Layla. The Indonesia connection makes that even more suspicious, of course. That doesn't automatically tell us exactly who Layla is, but it tells us something important. And that is Reacher doesn't know her nearly as well as he thought he did. And considering their growing personal relationship, that could become a major weakness for him, because obviously Reacher is attracted to this woman, wants to protect her. But she's much more of a wild card than any woman that Reacher has dealt with personally in any episode so far in this series. My thoughts here, of course, Karambits and Pieces is probably the best episode in the season so far, obviously. The investigation finally starts producing meaningful answers instead of adding endless new questions. Samson's past connects. The story is so valuable, of course. Mara discovers why the jump drive is so valuable. Jacob learns the devastating truth about his nephew. The Karambit connects multiple parts of this investigation. And then Layla and Amisha completely change our understanding of who they might be. The action also works better because it is spread throughout the episode, right? We get the warehouse fight, the subway confrontation, and the final motel setup without the story becoming one long action sequence, which I really like. And most importantly, the episode leaves Reacher in a position where we don't see him very often, confused, and potentially manipulated by some women. And now he's standing in the middle of a room full of dead men while the police surround him. And for a guy who usually stays 3 steps ahead of everyone, Reacher suddenly has some catching up to do. I will rate this episode an 8.5 out of 10, if, on my scale. So let me know what you think about this episode. Did you watch it? Are you going to watch it? If you haven't watched it, you need to go watch it. Watch the whole season. It's really good. It's starting to pick up as we get to the second half of this season. See you later, folks. I'll see you back in the next review.